Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. It is me, your boy, TPT, coming at you, not live and not from Twitch TV. So, unfortunately, this won't be a League meme video today. It's a little more serious. I mean, realistically, it's about esports, so if it's actually serious, it's probably up for contention, but it's a little more serious, at least in my previous videos so far, so I'd like to give it some credit for that, at least. And this is in relation to Andy Din, also known as TSM Reginald. He is the founder and owner of Team Solo Mid, which is one of the premier League of Legends teams in North American LCS, or Professional League. And so, if you don't know, the pretty much every single one of the LCS team owners has been advocating for the ability to remove the import restrictions, which is where in a North American LCS team there can be no more than 2 imports, so at least 3 have to be either North American or, as of this point, Australian Oceanic players. And TSM and all the other League of Legends teams have been pushing against this fact, which, before I even get into details with it, I already find to be very hypocritical. As these are the same people that were advocating against a number of right decisions in order to, air quotes, support domestic talent. And so, with the LCS, again, they've been pushing to remove this, and so a lot of questions have come up regarding this, and TSM Reginald produced a statement which I would like to cover, and then also give my additional opinion on some other factors. I do have a general idea about what I want to talk about, but obviously I don't really tend to write scripts for these sort of videos. I like to give my unfiltered opinion, because I feel like that comes across as more transparent. And frankly, scripts are for bitches anyway, so. I'm kidding, mostly. So, anyway. We start off with an example of the World Championships results from 2016 to 2020, because if you haven't been living under a rock for the past several years, you'll know that when it comes to international performances, LCS is garbage. And as you can see here, his argument is that, despite how much LCS is investing, they're still not competitive on the international stage, which by itself is correct. Okay, that it is true. LCS has an average player salary, at least, I think this was around the start of 2020, end of 2019, around $440,000. So, a little bit of money being thrown around in that scene. Hell, TSN themselves just spent $6 million on a 2-year contract with Sword Art. Frankly, I call that about 5,999,999 mistakes, but look, it's their money. So, yeah, they have a very, this is a very true point, is the LCS does have a lower player base than other regions, Again, LPL has just a massive amount of player base. LCK also has a reasonable number, so does LEC, and LCS does have, about 1 million players. I think, for comparison, I believe Oceania has like 240,000 or something. Probably less, actually. Maybe like under 200k. I can't remember exactly. And so they argue that this talent. You know, it means that it's a lot less effort to be able to reach Challenger, to be able to reach those top ranks, which again is true with a lower player base. You won't be able to have as high a level of competition. So, you know, like, again, like, that is fair enough. I can't argue with them on that. That's, you know, it's understandable. So, okay, this is the first point that I start to question, okay? Which is where, you know, TSM is saying, okay, yeah, look at us. We're investing $8 million US, not only into player salaries, coaches, facilities, etc. Okay, first of all, that's about, what? Sword Art's contract is 75% of that number. So, realistically, when you say $8 million, doesn't really come across as that impressive when you're spending 75% of that on a single player in your roster. And I'm telling you, he ain't worth it either. And so, for some reason, Reginald seems to think that a direct increase in the spending of a region doesn't make, increases it, you know, makes it better. Money does not necessarily mean that you will have stronger competition, better investments, because if you don't know what you're doing with that money in the first place, the majority of it is going to be wasted anyway. And if the majority of it is going to be wasted anyway, then what is the point? Okay, congratulations, you're in the top 10% of spending for all teams, and yet you still went 0-6 at Worlds. So what does that say? Maybe that says that money isn't the most important factor here. So the fact that you can flaunt it all you want, but if you don't know how to fucking use it, it doesn't mean anything. And you've clearly demonstrated that for multiple years running now. Especially with your recent investments into particular players, as I've previously stated already. Okay. We get to the next point. Yes. Other regions have an ocean of talent and natural local interest. Blah, blah, blah. For example, the LFL, which again is the French regional league, hit a 190k viewer peak, which is very impressive, and I congratulate them wholeheartedly for that. That's extremely impressive. Whereas NA Academy is 63,000 peak viewers, and that's only one of the many regional leagues in Europe. Whereas in A, you have the same players qualify for scouting grounds multiple years in a row in the year, blah, 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 blah. Yes, exactly. Okay. The infrastructure of the amateur players doesn't have the same level of investment that, you know, that other regions do. And, you know, when and then that, again, that even brings me up to this point again, okay? You're investing $8 million, okay, into, air quotes, new talent or whatever. All right, we don't. Again, he hasn't given us any details as to what this actually is, because this is quite poor grammar. First of all, if you ask me, but ignoring that, so only $1 million of that $8 million is actually going to academy, amateur, and other developmental efforts, air quotes. And the problem is that the majority of homegrown talent will come from academy and amateur leagues, and you're barely putting in $1 million of that $8 million budget. Okay, so even by your own standards of putting in more money, you're not really doing a very good job of succeeding. So, you know, using your own point against you, you're not really doing a very good job. Plus, that's not even including the cesspit that is NA Academy, where a lot of the players in NA Academy are frankly fucking better than the LCS teammates. Look what happens when, you know, Speaker and that went from Academy to LCS. He outperformed the previous fucking jungler. Because you don't give any opportunity for these amateur players to make it into the fucking grounds. Like, it doesn't happen enough. You don't give them enough opportunity to move up. So you have these insanely high quality players just rotting in academy, just fucking rotting, just deteriorating. They're not gaining extra skills. They don't, you know, like you can say, oh yeah, it's only put it into academy. That doesn't mean shit because you don't actually know how to do it in the first place. Throwing money at a problem is not how you solve things. I mean, it may work for some stuff, and it probably does assist to an extent. I'm not going to say it does nothing, but if you think that you can just solve problems by throwing money at them, it's no wonder that your team is a failure. But, you know, unfortunately, I feel like that's not just a problem with NA. Sorry, not just a problem with TSM. I think it's a problem with NA as a whole. And I don't think TSM should be expected to solely carry that either, obviously. You know, it should be a group effort. There's been some NA talent over the last few years to rise to the top, but exceptional talent that compete at international level is few and far between. The ironic part about him stating that is, if you look up here, first I want to say I want to overwatch my comments to Vulcan, okay? Vulcan is probably one of the few fucking players that actually would be able to compete on an international stage, and has competed to a good degree on an international stage. And if, you know, and yet you're telling him he's going to end up at fucking Macca's if you don't get rid of the import slot. What? Basically, because, essentially, just wait, I'll have to get up Vulcan's tweet, sorry, just to give a bit more context. I probably should have gotten this one up earlier, so I do apologize for that. Can't spell. Essentially, what he said was, you know, if no imports, just go buy a fucking, you know, yeah, see, if you want full import team, go buy a team in that region. Then he said, ignorant tweet, if every LCS team left the LCS, you'll be out of a job, buddy, and probably be paid minimum. Which, again, is really fucking ironic, because Vulcan is probably one of the best players in North America and would be able to move to another region if LCS shut down. Which is a lot more than I can say for most of the talent that you're creating, Reginald. So, you know, find that a little bit hypocritical. But, more players opted to higher education, collegiate programs, or streaming as alternative career paths. Alternatively, League of Legends is dominant force in Korea, China, and Europe. Meanwhile, NA players in excited towards console games and FPS games. This is pretty true. You know, I'm not going to say that's a lie. But, like, you know, if you look at the Counter-Strike scene, and that, it's predominantly North American. Same with Overwatch. Although I believe with Overwatch, there is quite a heavy Asian scene as well. Blah blah blah, you know, so NA has another major disadvantage. Players in NA train on a daily basis with higher ping. Okay, that's true. So, okay, first of all, the longer queue times, it would be solved if you were to take more players into NA. That is true. However, if these players are coming over to NA from overseas, how is that going to fix the ping issue? How is importing more players going to fix the ping issue? Please explain to me the correlation there. Okay, it is true that higher ping will obviously decrease your performance. That he's not wrong there. But how is what you're suggesting got anything to do with fixing that? Maybe what you should do is spend some of those $8 million to create LAN environments in which you can compete in a professional, competitive environment in order to nurture those players. Like, for example, regional leagues. Ooh, where did we hear that term before? Earlier in the fucking script? Crazy. But anyway, you know, because I mean, if you think about it, you know, like, EU only has around like 2 to 3 times the player base of NA, and they have dozens of regional leagues. Surely NA should be able to come up with something a little more than college, you know, fucking the amateur scene and like college, academy, and LCS. Surely you'd be able to come up with something a little more than that, wouldn't you? But I'm sure that's not the issue here. It's not like nurturing domestic talent will actually nurture domestic talent, guys. Come on. Be reasonable, please. There are some difficult challenges that LCS faces, and I believe that changing the import rules it currently stands will be one of many solutions that could be implemented to help the LCS more competitive. How? Okay, it makes it more competitive, alright, until they come over to NA and rot as well. Guess what? Have you ever noticed that a majority of people always end up making fun of NA as the retirement region? How would taking more players to a retirement region increase the quality of LCS? What are the chances that it would increase the quality and wouldn't just make all of those players worse? For a start. Again, that's only one of my points, okay? I do recognize that even if import rules were changed, LCS would still be at a disadvantage. Yeah, okay, that's cool, except what about the fact that if only LCS gets these import rules changed, how is that supposed to be fair for LEC? Is that not the definition of favoritism? Why should LCS be given a favored position above regions? Every other region, including OPL before it died, had to follow the import slot. So why would we make it that exclusively LCS doesn't have to follow the same rules as everybody else? Who can see a problem with that? How does that come off to you if you're a European or like, a Chinese or a Korean or a Japanese or a Vietnamese viewer, that they are allowed to get favoritism just because their region is more shit than yours? How does that come across to you? Like, I don't know, man, but that really just doesn't speak to me like a good idea, is allowing one region to be able to have more choices than everybody else. Okay, sure. Let's just steal all the best players out of the other regions, pay them millions of dollars, like for example $6 million for a 2-year contract, and then watch as they just become fucking washed up in an environment with not enough competition, not enough skills, and not enough intelligent fucking team owners. Sounds like a great fucking idea to me. Genius, even. There are simply not enough players, which means queue times would become even longer if this approach was taken. Not all regions are created equal, and if the expectation is for the LCS to compete against the other major regions, the LCS needs to find a way to even the playing field. Or, alternatively, maybe you should just make your region a little more competitive, instead of having to get Riot to fucking bend the rules just for you. Maybe you should actually foster that domestic talent that you were so fucking advocative for when it benefited you. Dude, this is the problem, okay? Have you ever noticed that pretty much every single person that doesn't have a financial, but rather an emotional investment in this region, that doesn't have a direct financial incentive in this region, is saying that this is a bad idea? Because, okay, that's cool. You can, you're looking at this, all right, as a business, which is a good perspective to have as a businessman. Except the problem is, you're not a good businessman. You're a League of Legends player, okay? Yes, you've created a very successful thing, but have you ever noticed how many times you've fucked up? You don't know how to shut up. You insult people for no reason. Okay? Like, he made a valid point, and you're telling him to go work at McDonald's? Can you see how that comes off as condescending to you? Remember what happened when Tryndamere, the Riot fucking CEO, or COO, I can't remember what he is, founder of Riot, tried to pull that same shit? Just really frustrates me, okay? You clearly have some grasp of business tactics because you're getting this fucking shady and underhanded, but people won't remain in this industry if you just strip all emotional investment in it, okay? People like seeing Americans because they are Americans watching Americans. You know, there's only one team in the LCS right now that exclusively fields American players, and that's Dignitas. All right, I believe they should be all American. I'm pretty sure that they're like the only one. They were considered one of the lowest potential. Like they were considered one of the top underdogs, and guess what? They're fucking 4th right now, man. Look at that. All American roster, 4th place. Okay, let's have a look here. Okay, that's 2 imports and an OCE player. That's 2 imports, OCE player. 2 imports, OCE player. All American. 2 imports. 2 imports. 1 import, 2 OCE players. 1 import, and 2 imports. So realistically, about 30 to 40% of the players already aren't even American. And you want to take that away even more. Your region is already dying because people are losing faith because you have no way of, again, I know I've said this too many times, but nurturing domestic talent. And so every time you send your teams off, they have no fucking idea what they're doing. They get 0-6 and they head straight back on the fucking plane they came in on. It doesn't even need to leave the airport because it already knows that it's gonna have its fucking flight ready for it in about 2 days' time. Goodbye. Send you back to where you came from. See you in 2022. If you can't, like, the only thing LCS needs to do to keep up the heart of its viewers is to have one decent Worlds run. Make it to finals once, okay? By actually creating a good homebred team and watch as LCS viewership fucking scores. Just absolutely soars. Because when people see Americans, as an American, okay, again, I'm not American, but like, if I'm an American viewer and I see an American doing well, I'm going to be hyped about that. Like, as an Australian, when I was watching our OCE team play, you know, we beat Europe. Do you know how that made me feel? Do you know how fucking awesome that made me feel when we beat Europe, one of the major regions? Yeah, sure, it was only a 4th, you know, it was like it was the 4th seed, but we beat a major region. Do you know how much hype that builds up for you? If America does well once, if NA does well once in Worlds, okay, people's interest will soar. The problem is, you have to actually be willing to put in the effort to give your teams a fighting chance. And frankly, I don't think they're willing to do that. They'd much rather just take the easy way out of importing a bunch of no-names, Chinese and Koreans who are too shit to play on their own fucking region. Good job, Huni. You're totally getting your money's worth, by the way, there. I'm kidding, okay. Huni's okay, but he really ain't working that paycheck that well. Let's just say that, yeah, there's a reason he ain't playing in Korea anymore, alright? I'm just saying. But if you actually, even Huni, at least, as he's an American resident, he has a story, okay? He has a story behind him. If you just pull in a bunch of no-name Asians, right, who's gonna watch a North American league when there's no North Americans left in it? Because realistically, the only reason the teams aren't fully imports already is because of the fact that there's the import rule. Because North Americans don't have, basically have no homebred talent, okay? One of the very few exceptions to that, of course, is my boy CoreJJ. And guess what? He's fucking Korean. He's not even homebred. Everyone's like, yes, CoreJJ is going to save North America. Guess what? He's a fucking import. I love the man, okay? CoreJJ is probably the person to save North America, if anything, but he's not even American. And yet he's doing a better job than fucking 10 North American team owners at trying to, you know, like with the, I don't know exactly who set it up, to be honest, but for example, the I can't remember what it's called, but there's the server of the top American players who run like scrims and stuff. Not like teams, but like like you have Dom does like I would dominate and that do like they watch them co-stream them basically. I can't remember what it's called. It's off the top. I can't remember it's on the tip of my tongue, but like those guys are doing more than the actual team owners to try and foster talent in North America. The players are doing more than the fucking owners. That's a problem. When your owners aren't doing as much as your players to make those players better, you have a serious problem. And frankly, I don't know if they're actually smart enough to fix it. I don't actually know if they have the capacity to be able to fix this issue. We have no idea what they're talking about. Right. Teams are currently investing in a major loss because we believe in Riot and we want to make our mark on the global stage and prove that LCS is a Premier League for fans. Now, you know why you're making a loss, because you're spending $6 million on a 2-year contract for a person who isn't even performing. That's probably why you're making a loss. It's because you don't know how to spend your money. You've completely overinflated the prices of a salary for a North America player, so that the average is $440,000. Does that not seem like an issue to you when the average is what's the average American salary? Like 60 grand? Let's have a look actually. Average American salary, okay, about like 60k, 30k, half of what I thought it is. So these people are getting paid more than 12 times the median American salary. And can you not, surely that doesn't come off as overblown to you or something, does it? Surely it doesn't, come off as overblown or anything, because there's no, for example, in AFL, in Australian Football League and Rugby League, there's teams are only allowed to spend so much on player salaries, because that stops the player salaries getting to these just ridiculous degrees. And when they get to those levels, you lose the competition, because you'll probably have one team which is able to just throw money at things. Or you'll have 2 teams, 3 teams that are just able to throw money and get the absolute best of the players, whilst no other team is able to compete because they're not willing to throw $3 million a year at a decent player. There's a reason why safeguards exist in proper sport. But the problem is, because esports is a newer invention, it doesn't have those safeguards yet. It doesn't have the ability to do that yet. Well, it does have the ability, but it just hasn't. It's chosen not to. There's a reason why those are in existence. And so when you're saying teams are investing in a major loss, that reason is because of those same teams. It is their fault they are investing at a major loss, because they are the one perpetuating that issue. Okay, and so LCS was at its greatest. CLG versus TSM used to peak at 600 concurrents. Where is it now? And guess what? When all you have left is a bunch of random Asians too shit to play in China and Korea, where is that viewership going to go then? It's going to go even lower than it already is. So this point doesn't really work either. If the LCS teams can't perform internationally, I believe that fans will lose interest over time. I already gave my take on this one earlier, so I'm not gonna bother repeating myself. The other half have already scaled back their investments or have already begun to make this transition towards LCS minimum salary 75k, since there isn't a reasonable way for them to build world caliber rosters under the current set of restrictions, and also because of the current inflation price on players as well, which I have also already covered. Frankly, again, keep in mind, this minimum salary, that's already more than that's about 2.5 times almost the median salary of Americans. That's a very fucking respectable amount. And and so, when you have someone spending, okay, let's do some maths here, okay? $6 million divided by 75,000. 80 times. When you have someone spending 80 times this amount on a player, how are you supposed to compete with that financially? You are the reason the industry is running at a loss. You are the problem. You aren't the solution. You are the problem. Okay, in addition, there's been some concern with any change to the rule. There will be less representation of NA talent in the LCS and will have an adverse effect on viewership, sorry. I don't believe this is the case. First, elite local talent such as Speaker, Tactical, Blabber, and Vulcan, and new up-and-coming talent will still find their way onto teams as long as their skills are comparable to their gloater counterparts, which, for the most part, it isn't. Okay, there's probably maybe half a dozen to a dozen American players that can confidently perform up to the level of international players, okay? Most of the best players in the region at the moment aren't even fucking American. Sven, Perks, Fudge, guess what? None of them are American. Someday, Closer, FBI, not American. TSM, Huni, technically American, but he wasn't. Speaker, wasn't American, but is now because the thing. Power of Evil, very good player. Guess what? He's EU. Dignitas is the one exception to this. They've been playing quite well, and I respect them greatly for it. Evil Geniuses, Impact, not American technically. Sven, only, not American technically. Well, he is now again. Well, he is American technically, but wasn't originally, okay? Four of them in 5th place weren't American. Core JJ, Alfari, 2 of the best players in the region, arguably. Guess what? They're not American. Jensen, Santorin, not American. The majority of Americans are barely even able to compete in their own region, and you're expecting them to be able to compete internationally? How about, first of all, you fix the domestic talent before you start saying that they're actually able to compete on an international level? They aren't. That is the problem. And especially when you have some genuine American talent that is just fucking rotting away in academy, okay? Let's have a look at something, alright? Let's use my earlier example. This man, he was in fucking academy for almost 2 years. Alright? He was in academy for almost 2 years. And guess what? He was probably better already by this point than half of the players in LCS, but they don't recognize that fact, so they just rot there. You know why? Because you don't have any fostering of domestic talent. It's almost like I've said this before. Crazy, man. Crazy. Just fucking crazy. Second, our fans have been incredibly accepting of players such as Bjergsen, Santorin, Jensen, Impact, Core JJ, Perks, Sven, Scarin, Lustboy, etc. Yeah, but that's, again, they're still playing with Americans when there's no Americans left. When there's basically none left except maybe, a dozen out of 50 players. How are they going to keep up with those stories? No one's going to be watching, okay? Perks is big in America because he was big in EU. Bjergsen is probably one of the few examples of, EU talent that's become considered domestic and NA talent. People don't even realize Bjergsen's not even, I've found a disturbing number of people that don't even realize that Bjergsen isn't American. He's fucking Danish, if I remember correctly. And sure, admittedly, some of these players do have compelling narratives, but it's pretty difficult to retain that sort of compelling narrative when you also, instead of having a bunch of North Americans with him, you just have a bunch of random Asians and Europeans. When there's no American players left, because realistically, America is not able to compete on the same level as international players. America is a bad reason because the player base doesn't have the skill, the ability, or the chance to be able to perform on an international level. You have a very small sum of people, example, Speaker, Tactical, Blabber, and Vulcan. And guess what? Speaker was rotting away in academy for almost 2 years before they gave him the chance to become local talent. They didn't even fucking realize it. So, okay. Yeah, also Vulcan, yeah, well, apparently Vulcan's going to be working at McDonald's if LCS closes down, so I don't know why you're calling him elite local talent all of a sudden, but hey, that's your words, not mine. The goal shouldn't be to allow LCS teams to pick the full World Championship roster and field them in the LCS. There should be restrictions on this. Yes, there really should be. Guess what? There already are restrictions, and they should probably remain in place. However, all teams should be given access to the entire worldwide player base so that all teams have an even playing field to develop talent from. What about all the other regions? Do all the other regions get the entire worldwide player base, or do you just get favoritism? Which one is it? Do all teams get it, or do just Americans get it? Because, again, if Americans are the only one that get it, do you see any problem with that? Do you see any issue with that? Yeah, it's fucking favoritism, and it's bullshit. Just because your region is dog shit doesn't mean every other region should have to suffer for that fact. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry. How about you develop your domestic talent and actually become worthy of an international title, and then we can talk about, getting access to the entire worldwide player base. Or how about we do what Monte Cristo suggested and make a worldwide league where teams from every region compete against each other in a, like Worlds, but more consistent. Say 20 teams, you get a couple from America, a couple from Europe, a couple from Korea, a couple from Japan, a couple from China, a couple from Australia, and actually put those, into like a world league of a sort, like the top of the top. And how about we, compare notes then? I honestly think that Monte Cristo didn't have a horrible idea. Whether or not that actually would work, I'm not sure, you'd probably require quite a bit of testing, but I honestly thought, yeah, exactly, the NA region doesn't magically deserve unlimited important players simply to help their team owners justify their investment. They're losing investment that they caused, by the way. It's not like they don't know why they were buying on NA franchise. They came with the restrictions, that audience and that player base. Yep. I'm shocked that my team isn't competitive on a global level, and LCS owner said, approach years. Yeah, I mean, I think this is that's probably not exactly a fair point. I think he's probably a little, maybe a little exaggerative there. I don't know where his comment went, but it was with his World League, so I'll just give up on that one for now. But I feel like just because your viewership counts are stagnating, your own fault has caused your region to be a net negative, doesn't mean that every other region should be punished by you getting preferential treatment because of your lack of business acumen. That doesn't really seem very fair to me. So far, this issue has been discussed without nuance in the public. I believe that the import rule discussion has been overblown, and teams, including myself, have communicated poorly. No shit. There are solutions and approaches that we can work together to resolve these issues. I do think there is a middle ground where we can loosen up the number of players that can be important to the amount of time that it takes for them to become residents. Over the last few years, teams invested in talent development through our academy and amateur programs, of which a lot are now playing in LCS and LEC. We've tried to enhance every other aspect of performance within our control by providing a world-class facility, running scout combines, boot camps, career investing, coaching staff. Yeah, but I mean, what about the rest of the region as well? Even when implementing best practices from other regions and investing into development, the current problems that LCS team face with our player base and ping issues are too much to be viable internationally. Again, that's part of your own fault. It is now a pivotal moment to discuss changing the import rules and also look for solutions to even the playing field or see ourselves relegated to the status of a wildcard region, which is probably deserved at this point. For those who are in favour of maintaining the current rules or even changing them, I'm open to thoughts on how to tackle these problems in order to create a more competitive league in the global ecosystem. Now, again, please keep in mind, I don't entirely disagree with what he's saying. I think there is definitely some validity in what he's saying, but I don't think that changing the import rules is really going to solve that problem. Just importing people from overseas just to try and make up the fact that you guys, that your region doesn't know how to develop talent, okay? Just because your region doesn't know how to not spiral the inflation of players to unseen proportions doesn't mean, it's just really frustrating because I like seeing leagues succeed, okay? I don't play the game myself anymore because I can't handle the player base. It's just a shithole toxic wasteland over here in OCE, but I still really enjoy watching it. I'm still personally invested in the stories of teams and players. Core JJ fucking Chad, probably one of my favorite players of all time. Dude has put in hours. You know, he put in hundreds and thousands of hours into trying to help develop people, you know, into better players. And throwing money at the problem isn't going to solve it. Just importing players from overseas isn't going to solve it. That's, if anything, that would probably make the problem worse, because those players are going to get over here for that paycheck, because we already know you're going to pay them ridiculous amounts of money. The issue of paying players too much is only going to get worse, because they're not going to bother placing restrictions on it, because that makes too much sense, and the team owners would most likely kick up a stink. And the issue is just going to continue spiraling out of the control. Something needs to be done, but this ain't it, Chief.